Good evening, everybody, and thank you so much for joining our webinar tonight. 2020 has been a most challenging year for each and every one of us. As we begin the new year, it is a time to start afresh and begin this year with a new energy, a new vitality, excitement, and opportunity. Before I start, I just want to make mention that this webinar is dedicated in memory of Rabbi Nachman Bernhard, whose Yortzeit is on Shabbos, the 8th of Tishrei. Rabbi Bernhard dedicated his life to spreading the teachings of Torah to thousands of people across the globe. Now, our featured panelist tonight is Miriam Lipskier. She will be speaking on putting the happy in Happy New Year. Sounds like something we could all do with, right? Miriam is the co-founder and director of the Chabad Student Center at Emory University in Atlanta, Georgia. Together with her husband and 8 children, they have created a vibrant community of Jewish life and learning, hosting Shabbos dinners for hundreds of students each week. Miriam is a dynamic teacher of Jewish thought and spirituality and lectures internationally. She's a member of the Beis Chana Women International and has led teen and adult educational programs in Israel, Moscow, South Africa, and the US. She has also been passionately teaching brides for over 18 years. Miriam is known to be funny, warm, engaging, and meaningful. I'm sure we're all in for a treat. So without further ado, I'd like to call on Miriam to address us.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. These days, international is pretty cool when it means hanging out in one of your kids' rooms with the laptop. So thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be here. I don't actually see the gallery view of anyone's faces. Not sure why. If you could change that setting, that would be awesome. But I will tell you, even though you guys are in South Africa, I'm just in the South in America. But one thing that's pretty famous, or Atlanta, Georgia is pretty famous for, is the international beverage, Coca-Cola, found pretty much everywhere in the world. Like the joke says that wherever you'll find a Chabad house, you'll find Coca-Cola, and they are headquartered here in Georgia. So why am I mentioning that? Because in the city, Atlanta, where I live, they very often roll out their advertising campaigns initially here. They see how it does in this city, and then depending on the response and the feedback, they then send it out to internationally, depending in which countries and places that they want to advertise different messages. So one day I'm driving down the highway and I see a tremendous billboard with what I thought, in my opinion, was the best Coca-Cola advertisement ever. What did it have on the billboard? It just had the big iconic Coke bottle, the glass one, and there were only 2 words on the screen, on the billboard. What did it say? It said, "Open happiness." And driving by, I thought that is so brilliant, because no matter if you like Coca-Cola or not, I'm personally not a fan, sorry, but if you don't like Coke, or you do like Coke, or whatever your beverage choice is, everybody, every human being does want happiness. Every human being is in pursuit of happiness. Everyone wants to up their happiness game, find ways to be, more happy, to fill their year, their life, their relationships, their career, their business, you name it, with vitality, with happiness. And what's very interesting about that universal need is actually the way in which we approach it. So when I say we, I'm talking about the Jewish we. We have a very interesting way of approaching happiness. It's actually not something that we look at as a goal, someplace that you're going to arrive at this happy location or destination, and then you're going to send everyone a postcard saying, all right, I made it, I'm happy. Although that's maybe what you see on Facebook or social media, bunch of happy photos, kind of contrast that to the pictures of our great-great-grandparents in the 1900s. No one even smiled for a picture because they had a different, I guess, way of viewing the world. But what's interesting is we're in a very awesomely potential time in our calendar, where Rosh Hashanah is right behind us and Yom Kippur is right in front of us. It's called Aseret Yemei Teshuvah, but really, if you do the math, it's not 10 days of Teshuvah, which we'll mention. It's actually 7 between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And what's fascinating about it is we wish one another. We have a traditional greeting, which we wish to all of our loved ones, whether we're at shul, whether we're at home. We say Shana Tova, or Shana Tova U'Mituka, or Gemar Chatima Tova. In any of these greetings, you do not hear the word happy. Happy New Year is not a Jewish greeting. It's very much a secular greeting. We say Happy New Year January 1st, but the Jewish greeting has the word tov in it, the word good. And what I want to share today is the absolute most fundamental secret to all of Jewish life and living that we can unpack in these two incredible days, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which we find ourselves in between. And what that is not only is it the secret to meaningful Jewish life and living, but it's actually the long, short way, so to speak, to happiness. And it's the Jewish way of not looking at happiness as a goal, but actually a tool and a vehicle to get us through life, as opposed to a destination that we arrive at. So let me share a story, okay? This story goes back a few hundred years. There was a very disgruntled fellow. He was totally bent out of shape because there were this group of people. Currently, today, they're called Hasidim. Back then, they did not have that name. They were called their Freilicher, like the happy, joyous ones. And the founder of this new movement was the Baal Shem Tov. You may have heard of him. And so this disgruntled fellow comes to the Baal Shem Tov and he says, I seriously don't understand. If you look what times we're living in, and you look what surrounds us, and you look what we have to deal with, life is rough. We are in ghettos, we are in shtetls, we don't have opportunity, we don't have plenty, we don't have abundance, we're struggling, we're suffering. Food on the table is not a given, health is not a given, everything is a challenge. And what's wrong with you people that you're busy being positive and happy and upbeat and dancing and singing? Like, really, what is there to be happy about unless you've lost your mind? If you're a realistic person who's grounded and observing the situation, it is dire, it is painful, it is dark, and I don't understand what you guys are celebrating. Please explain it to me. We get his question, right? It makes sense. So what did the Baal Shem Tov respond to this fellow? The Baal Shem Tov responded in the good Jewish way, which is by sharing a story. So the Baal Shem Tov turns to this man, I hear your question, and he shares this story. He says, there's an extremely talented young individual, young man, who's musically gifted. He was never properly trained, but he had an incredible ear and talent in playing music. He had a violin, and he would play such beautiful melodies. Whoever heard couldn't help but be drawn into this beautiful music. And so how would he make a living? He would play music at different events, or sometimes just on the street, and people would throw a few, shekels, whatever the kopecks, whatever it was, into his case. And that's how he would get through the day. So one day, this fellow, it's a Tuesday, nothing's going on. He's in the marketplace, and this young musician is playing a beautiful melody. And as he's playing the song, one person stops to listen and another person stops to listen, because what happens when something's beautiful, you take notice. So one person hears and another person hears. And as a few people start to gather to hear this beautiful, beautiful melody that this incredible, talented musician is playing, the tempo of his song goes from slow and melodious to faster, more vibrant, more upbeat, more joyous. And as the tempo is gathering momentum, one person starts to dance and another person grabs another one in. And pretty soon there's a circle of people dancing. And as we all know, joy and happiness and music and energy, it's contagious. Just like germs are contagious, so are good things. And so people start to join in a circle, one circle going one way and another circle going the other way. And as there's such a beautiful response from this crowd in the marketplace, the musician is so engrossed and he's playing such gorgeous, beautiful song. And as this scene is going on and the crowd is gathering larger, this one fellow walks out of his little hut on the side of the marketplace, and he steps out of his door. And this man happened to be deaf. He could not hear, but he could see. And what does he see? The world's gone crazy. All these people are dancing and kicking up dust and twirling themselves in circles, and he doesn't understand. It's a Tuesday. There's no celebration. There's no holiday. Nothing has happened in the world that warrants such expression. He couldn't figure it out. So the Baal Shem Tov turns to this man who had this question, and he said, you tell me, what was this individual missing? Why couldn't he make sense of the picture? So obviously, what was the answer? The answer was pretty simple. This man couldn't hear the music. If he could hear the music, he would not have had a question, why are people dancing? Because when there's beautiful music, it's a very common, normal, healthy response to dance to the music. So what does this anecdote teach us? Something very profound, that each and every one of us, our lives are very much affected by what goes on around us. However, if we have the ability to tap into the music that's within our hearts and within our souls. And what is that music? That music is actually the sounds or the message of this one simple fundamental idea that really encompasses Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, but all of Jewish life. And that is that God, creator of heaven and earth, a part and a piece of that light, of that divine energy, is within me. It is invested in me. It is my core. It's who I am. And when I tap into that music, to the sound of my soul, then what am I hearing? I'm hearing the messages that the divine creator put within me, that I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a purpose. I was endowed with unique gifts, abilities, talents, skills, you name it, to do something worthwhile in this world, be it small, be it big. It's not even important what it is. It's that it is, that I'm here for a reason. And if I tune into that power, to that essence, to that core of who I am, that inside of me, I am nothing less than a chelek Eloka, a part of God, literally. This is not a spiritual, esoteric idea. This is a practical, literal makeup of the human condition. And if I tap in and I hear that music, how does that change my life? It changes my life in the most profound way. Because if my power comes from nothing and no one less than the creator of heaven and earth, than Hashem, that means that nobody in my life, not my spouse, not my child, not my parent, not my colleague, not my neighbor, not my mother-in-law, not my sister, nobody has power over me. People's opinions, people's comments, people's perspectives, they're there, they're real, but I have the power to choose how I respond to them. And I'm not a victim on a roller coaster, and my mood and my disposition is going to actually be dependent on who says what to me, who responds to me in what way, and not only the circumstances in my life, which there are many, and many of them provide a tremendous amount of challenges, health and wealth, prosperity, education, you name it. But ultimately, if I don't attribute power to anyone or anything, then I am a person who could tap into the essence of my core and into the heart and soul of who I am, which is literally the greatest power of all, because it's directly from Hashem. And what do we do on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? It's interesting because every Jewish holiday has an energy that we're tapping into. So some big ones, you got Passover, it's about, relieving ourselves from the things that hold us back. It's redemption over slavery and letting go of, confines and constraints. So that's the energy, let's say, we have of Passover. You have Hanukkah, light over darkness, or pick a holiday, there's an energy. What's the energy of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur? So unfortunately, there's a misguided idea that this is like a sad time where we have to kind of, be really hard on ourselves and really depressed about where we messed up. And that's not really the mystical view of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. The mystical view, or the Kabbalistic, Hasidic view of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is, I am reaffirming and I am showing up to announce to myself and to the world that this relationship that I have with my Creator is front and center. I'm reaffirming it. And this is where my power comes from. This is the music that's inside of me that drives me. And this is actually the Jewish secret to true happiness. It's not necessarily what I'm going to get from the outside. If you say something nice, if you do something nice, if we go somewhere nice, that can for sure help me have a pleasant day, and sometimes adds in joy, and those are good things. I'm not knocking them, but ultimately they cannot define me, because I need to be defined from the inside out, not from the outside in. And so I'll share a story. My husband and I, this is actually our 20th Rosh Hashanah at Emory University in Atlanta. And they say that Emory stands for Established Methodist, Only Recently Yiddish, because there's a lot of members of the tribe here, but it's in essence a Methodist school established in 1836. Anyway, the way the Jewish community was set up, many years ago is that every week, all the Jewish students would gather. We would break off into 3 different services: Reform, Conservative, and Orthodox. I'm doing those things because those labels really should not define any of us, but that was the names of the services. And then after the services were over, everyone would gather for Shabbat dinner. One week it would be at the Hillel house, one week it would be at the Chabad house, etc. So one week, the Jewish community invited the president of the university, a very distinguished professor who is now the president, to join the community. And obviously he had been a Methodist minister. He was actually in the philosophy department and literature department. So he joins the community and he goes to each one of the services, and then he joins all of us together for the meal, and he gets up for his Devar Torah. And what was very interesting was, usually when you share words with the crowd, you want to inspire people, uplift people. He actually managed to upset a large percentage of the audience in the room last night, the Jewish community that night, because what did he share? Something that was very interesting. And these are his words, this Methodist University president. This is what he said. He said, "I learned something so interesting observing the Jewish community tonight that I never learned before." He was probably a man in his upper 60s, early 70s at the time. He said, "My whole life, I've been a devout Methodist, and it's always been true to me that the more observant someone is, and the more devout someone is, and the more religious someone is, the more serious they take life. They're not just frivolous. They're not just like chilling. They're focused and they're driven and they're serious, etc." And he's like, "I always found that to be true. And the more secular someone is, the more they didn't take life as seriously with focus and purpose and meaning, etc." He said, "But tonight, I was so taken aback to learn that in the Jewish community, it looks like it's the exact opposite. Because what did I observe tonight?" And he went on to share with the student body there, a few hundred students, that he went first to the Reform service. And none of his comments, by the way, have anything to do with any of these movements, because again, they're just labels. Doesn't mean anyone in the room puts those labels on themselves. We always tell everyone, keep labels for your clothes, not for people. But somehow Jews like to put themselves in little lunch boxes with labels on it. Different topic. Anyway, he said he went into the first service and it was very beautiful. There were 2 students leading the service, and it was responsive, back and forth. They said a line, and the congregation responded. He said, "It wasn't familiar to me, but it was very meaningful and beautiful to hear that responsive rendition of the Friday night services." He says, "Then I walk into the next service, and the whole congregation was singing a slow song together about peace. It was Oseh Shalom." He wasn't familiar with the words, but he knew the content, obviously, and it was very meaningful, and I really appreciated and enjoyed it. And he said, "Then I went into the final service, which was the Orthodox service." And I'm saying Orthodox because no one in that room would have considered themselves Orthodox, except the rabbi who was leading that service happened to be my husband. I don't know if he would consider himself Orthodox. He's a Chabad rabbi. And the president of the university said, "I walked into this third service and I saw something so surprising." What did I see? A bunch of students dancing around the table, otherwise known as the bima, banging on the table. He even did some rendition of "ay, ay, ay," schwitzing. I don't know if he used that word, but I think it's an okay English word. Pounding and fist pumping and dancing and singing. I don't know what the words were. I don't know what the content was, but there was so much joy and energy and vibrancy, and they were going around and around and drawing other people into the circle and banging on the table and arm over arm, shoulder over shoulder. And he said, "I was just taken with the joy and the energy that was in this room, which made me realize that perhaps in the Jewish community, it's the opposite." And this was his conclusion, that maybe for the Jewish people, the more devout you are, the more committed you are to your faith, your creator, your tradition, your heritage, perhaps the more energy and joy there is, which has never been my experience in my community from where I come from. And what was interesting is after he left, many students were a little bit bent out of shape by what he said. They wanted to talk about it because they felt that he maybe didn't appreciate the service they were in. But we had a few hour Farbrengen, right, discussion about what was he actually saying, and is it true that for Jewish people, the more we're in touch with God, the stronger our faith, the higher our energy and happiness, because the less we allow other people, events, activities, or circumstances to affect us. And the more we understand deeply and truly that everything comes from Hashem, everything that comes from Hashem is good, even if I don't see it. And that's not something outside of me, but at my truest self, that is inside me, because that is who I am. My greatest power is the fact that the music in my soul, with my mission and purpose in life, is Hashem, and they're not two separate things. And so on Rosh Hashanah and on Yom Kippur is actually interesting. It's called the Day of Atonement, which sounds again like this somber, maybe dark, depressing day, which it's not supposed to be. It's meant to be the day of at-one-ment. I am one with the inside of me, with the outside of me. And why don't I eat? Why don't I celebrate? Because normally we like to feed our physical self, because our physical self appreciates beautiful clothing and fine foods and wine and drink and interacting with friends and family. But on Yom Kippur, we say, you know what? My neshama feels such pleasure connecting with its core that I'm not even going to let the outside affect the inside. So it's not that I'm afflicting myself, although I could look at it that way because it could be uncomfortable. And I could count the hours. When am I going to get to eat? Because I'm a human being. But I'm not just a human being. I'm a soul that happens to be in a body. And one day a year, I let that soul shine. I try to, put down the focus and the highlight or the laser focus on the externals, on the physical, on the body, on the outside powers of my life. And I try to focus on where it all matters, which is my core, which is my connection to Hashem, and which is where true happiness comes from. It's not going to come from what you say or what you think, meaning you outside of me. It's going to come from the fact that my eternal worth is godliness, is pure spirituality. That's a real essence of who I am. And so back to the Rosh Hashanah greeting that we actually use throughout the high holiday season. Why don't we say Happy New Year? Why don't we use the word simcha? Why don't we use the word joy? Why don't we wish each other? We may say Chag Sameach, but not on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We say Shana Tova. And what's the secret to that? So the secret to that is, while we all want happiness, and at least in the American Constitution, it's one of our rights, the pursuit of happiness, but it only grants you the pursuit, not the arrival at, but you could chase this. That's what we're guaranteed here. I'm not sure what the Constitution in South Africa looks like, if it's similar or not, but the Jewish process and the Jewish concept is actually, we say Shana Tova, because Tov, goodness, appreciating goodness, seeing goodness, understanding that good doesn't always feel happy, but sometimes the best things take work and effort and toil and a lot of schwitz, but they're no less good. We wish one another a Shana Tova because we understand that doing good, focusing on the good, and letting the good inside of us shine out, that is actually the Jewish secret to happiness. So the Jewish secret to a new year is not to focus on the happiness, but is to focus on the good, the doing good, the I am good, the everything that God does is good. And that Tov is actually not a, to be overlooked, because that's actually one of the fundamental secrets of Jewish joy and meaning. And I'll add one more thing, because today is actually Vav Tishrei, the 6th day of the month of Tishrei. We commemorate the Rebbe's mother, Rebbe Tzimchana, who in her name actually encompasses the 3 mitzvahs of Jewish women. The Chet, the Nun, and the Hey stand for Chala, the Nerot, and the Nida, mikvah, the law of mikvah, and hadlakot nerot, lighting candles, which is a way that Jewish women bring into our homes and into our lives the spiritual, in the food we eat, in the aura and energy of our home, and in the light that we spread to our family and friends. And I'm sharing something that Rebbe Tzimchana, whose Yortzeit we commemorate today, her husband, Rabbi Levi Yitzchak, who was the father of the Rebbe, shared. And I think this is something to really bless one another with. And what did he share? He wrote a letter saying, why is it that we write or we wish one another Lashana Tova or Lashana Tova Umituka? If it's good, Tov, then why does it need to be matok, sweet? And if it's sweet, matok, why does it need to be tov, good? Why do we need both? And of all the words that we can use, all the adjectives that we could describe that we want to wish one another, why do we choose tov, good, and matok, sweet? And the answer that he shared was that not always is everything that's good for us feel sweet, because sometimes things happen to us that feel very difficult and very challenging, and only later could we look back and say, wow, did I learn, did I grow, did I bring out an ability that I didn't know I had because of that challenge or difficulty? So ultimately it was good, but I didn't see it or feel it at the time. But matok, sweetness, is something each and every one of us could appreciate. When you taste something sweet, whether it's honey, whether it's, you know, maple syrup, it doesn't matter. It's sweet to everyone, unless, God forbid, you're not tasting anything because you have some corona symptoms, God forbid. But if you can taste, then sweet is sweet. It's a universal, you know, taste bud, if you will, and it's obvious to all. So why do we wish one another Lashana Tovo Mituka? Because what are we really asking for? We're saying, I want the good to be the type that my physical self, my body, the parts of me that experience the world through sight and sound and pleasure and touch, I want to taste those things in a sweet way that I, on the outside, could appreciate, not just having to dig for it, dig for treasures, look for the silver lining. And so I want to bless each and every one of us here with, I got a little l'chaim, although I know in the evenings you guys are probably onto different beverages. Here it's still middle of the day, so I have a little Black Russian coffee, but I want to wish us each a l'chaim, that this year, which Rosh Hashanah will sign, seal, and deliver, certainly and absolutely should be the year where the goodness in the world is so obvious and so revealed to all of us that we don't need to deep dive for it. We don't need to scratch the surface to look, and we don't need to put in so much effort and energy to find the good in all the challenges that we've experienced on the outside in our world, but rather the hope and the blessing that has been a part of our people's history since the beginning, which is that we wish one another and we bless one another, that this should be the year that we all merit to see Mashiach. And when people heard the word Mashiach, they're like, oh no, that sounds scary. I don't know if I'm ready for that. The whole world could transform overnight in 1 minute. Well, this year we have all seen how that can happen, but we haven't seen it in a way of sweetness. We've seen it in a way that has presented a lot of challenges. What does it mean that we want to ask for a world where we see Mashiach revealed? It means that my light, my soul, my music inside of me, and the music and light and soul inside of you, and the light that is hidden all around us in everything physical in this world should actually be obvious and clear as day to all of us. So we're just asking that we want to see what's already there. It's kind of like the analogy, just because we're on a Zoom call, you can be on the screen, but you don't put your video on. So you're muted and your video's not streaming. So it's a black screen. It may or may not say your name on it. And we have that experience with Hashem. Hashem's there, absolutely present in our lives, but we don't, the screen looks black to us. And very often when we meet other people, their screen is also black to us, even though they're very much there listening and following and present. And so what do we ask? Turn on the mic, turn on the video. I want to hear you. I want to see you, not just the external you, but the internal you, the light in you, the joy in you, the part of you that is the power because it's powered by our Creator. And so I want to say a l'chaim to each and every one of us that this year, 5781, which is going to be, we don't need to wait till Yom Kippur, but this year should be the year, just like we saw so many challenges in the past year overnight where after the world went into lockdown, we should be able to see the reverse of that, where overnight the world can actually see V'rohu kol ha'amim, all the nations, all of humanity, everyone on planet Earth, just like we've seen the power of a germ to do not positive and not good things. We want to see the power of light, that it could do good things by shining the truth on what's really there, where the power really lies, where joy and happiness is really to be found. And so thank you, and l'chaim, to a beautiful, happy, healthy, sweet new year in every way, a year of light for everyone from the inside out with the coming of Mashiach. L'chaim.
L'chaim, l'chaim, amen. That was wonderful. That was really wonderful. There may be a question. Someone's raised their hand. But
questions are awesome. If there's questions, I see there's some things in the chat. I don't know if I should.
Oh, she just said, okay. Thank you. Have an easy parting. Lots of love. Hashem grants all. Okay. It's really just a nice comment wishing everyone.
Okay. Okay, well, if there's any questions, we always open to, questions, comments, alternate speeches, ideas, opinions. And I guess if there is no questions or comments, then it should really just be a beautiful year. We say l'chaim because that tells us that life is lived in the plural. We don't say chai, it doesn't just mean cheers, but we say l'chaim because we need all of us, each and every one of us, to make it a world that's beautiful and filled with meaning and purpose. So l'chaim, that this should be the year that we've all been waiting for in every way.
Amen. L'chaim, l'chaim. Thank you. Thank you so much, Miriam, for your inspirational words of wisdom, for educating, inspiring, and uplifting us all with your practical and valuable messages. Thank you for putting the happy new year for us. Your words were empowering, enriching, and most entertaining as well. May I take this opportunity wishing you all a Gemar Chatima Tova, as well as an easy and meaningful fast. Thank you to all the listeners. Have a good night.
Good night.